Have you ever wondered why someone who loves you deeply can suddenly become distant? What if their silence isn't a sign of losing feelings, but a sign of a battle they're fighting within themselves? Today, we're going to explore the hidden reasons why love sometimes steps back instead of moving closer. One of the most painful experiences in life is watching someone become distant when you know there was once a deep connection between you. We often assume that distance means the love is gone. We tell ourselves that if someone truly cared, they would stay close, they would call more often, text more frequently, and make their feelings obvious. But life is rarely that simple. Human emotions are far more complex than the stories we create in our minds. Sometimes, distance is not the opposite of love. Sometimes, it is the consequence of love colliding with fear. Think about it for a moment. The people who have the power to hurt us the most are often the people we care about the most. When someone begins to love deeply, they also begin to risk deeply. Suddenly, there is something valuable to lose. Suddenly, their heart is exposed in a way it has never been before. And for many people, vulnerability feels terrifying. Not everyone has learned how to stay present when emotions become intense. Some people were taught to hide their feelings. Others grew up believing that depending on someone is dangerous. Some have experienced heartbreak that left scars they never fully healed. So when genuine love enters their life, instead of feeling safe, they feel overwhelmed. What looks like withdrawal on the outside may actually be an internal struggle on the inside. They may be asking themselves questions they never say out loud. What if I get hurt? What if I disappoint them? What if they discover who I really am and decide I'm not enough? What if I lose this person after becoming attached? These fears can become so loud that they drown out the very love they feel. And this is where many relationships become misunderstood. One person sees the distance and assumes rejection. The other person feels love but is battling fear. Neither understands what is truly happening. The silence grows, the space widens, and both people begin creating stories that may not reflect reality at all. This doesn't mean every person who pulls away is deeply in love. Sometimes distance does mean disinterest. But there are also moments when someone's absence is not a reflection of how little they care. It is a reflection of how unprepared they feel to handle the depth of what they feel. When we understand this, we begin to look at people with more compassion. We stop judging every action at surface level. We realize that human beings are often fighting invisible battles that influence their behavior in ways they don't fully understand themselves. The truth is that love does not always make people move closer immediately. For some, love first exposes every fear they have spent years trying to avoid. And until they learn how to face those fears, distance can become their way of protecting a heart that already cares more than they know how to express. Sometimes the greatest distance is created not by a lack of love, but by a fear of losing it. As we begin to understand that distance is not always the absence of love, we arrive at another important truth. Sometimes people withdraw not because of what is happening between you and them, but because of what is happening within them. One of the greatest mistakes we make in relationships is assuming that every change in someone's behavior must somehow be about us. When someone becomes quieter, less available, or emotionally distant, our minds immediately search for explanations. We wonder if we said something wrong. We question whether their feelings have changed. We replay conversations and analyze every detail, trying to find the moment everything shifted. But often, the real answer has nothing to do with us. Every person you meet is carrying something you cannot see. Some are carrying pressure from their work. Some are carrying financial worries. Some are carrying anxiety that keeps them awake at night. Others are carrying wounds from their past that still haven't healed. And sometimes these invisible burdens become so heavy that they consume all of a person's emotional energy. When people are overwhelmed internally, they often begin to retreat externally. It's not because they don't care, it's because they are struggling to carry the weight of their own thoughts. Imagine someone trying to keep a smile on their face while fighting a storm inside their mind. Every day becomes a battle that no one else can see. They may still love deeply, they may still think about you constantly, but they no longer have the emotional capacity to show up in the way they once did. Many people have been taught to handle pain alone. They don't ask for help. They don't express what they're going through. Instead, they isolate themselves. They convince themselves that they need to solve everything before allowing anyone to get close. They believe they must fix their problems before they deserve love, support, or connection. The tragedy is that the very people who care about them often misunderstand this withdrawal. What looks like indifference may actually be exhaustion. What looks like rejection may actually be self-doubt. What looks like emotional distance may simply be someone trying to survive a difficult chapter of their life. And the deeper their struggle becomes, the more they pull away. Not because they want to lose the connection, but because they don't know how to maintain it while carrying everything else. This doesn't mean we should excuse unhealthy behavior or accept endless uncertainty, but it does remind us to approach people with understanding before jumping to conclusions. We never truly know the battles another person is fighting behind closed doors. Some of the strongest people you know are carrying silent struggles that would surprise you. Some of the warmest hearts are fighting private wars, and some of the people who love you most are currently trying to find their way through darkness they don't yet know how to explain. Sometimes the distance you feel is not a sign that they have stopped caring. It is a sign that they are carrying more than they know how to share. And this brings us to something many people never realize about love. We often think that being loved is one of the easiest experiences in the world. We imagine that when someone finally finds a person who truly cares about them, everything should fall into place naturally. The walls should come down, the fears should disappear, the relationship should become effortless. But for many people, the exact opposite happens. Because real love has a way of shining a light on the parts of ourselves we have spent years trying to hide. When someone genuinely sees you, appreciates you, and cares about you, it creates a level of vulnerability that can feel uncomfortable. Suddenly, all the insecurities that once stayed hidden in the background begin to rise to the surface. The fear of not being good enough, the fear of being abandoned, the fear of being rejected after becoming emotionally attached, the fear of losing something valuable. Love doesn't create these wounds, it reveals them. Think about it. If someone has experienced betrayal in the past, trusting again doesn't feel easy. If someone has been abandoned before, getting close to another person can feel risky. If someone has spent years believing they are unworthy of love, receiving genuine affection can feel unfamiliar and even frightening. This is why some people begin pulling away at the exact moment a relationship starts becoming meaningful. From the outside, it seems confusing. Things appear to be going well. The connection is growing. Feelings are deepening. Yet instead of moving closer, they begin creating distance. What many people don't understand is that intimacy often activates old emotional memories. A person may not consciously realize what is happening. They simply feel overwhelmed. Their mind starts looking for reasons to protect itself. They become cautious. They overthink every interaction. They question the relationship. They question themselves. Sometimes they even convince themselves that creating distance is safer than risking future pain. The challenge is that these reactions are rarely logical. They are emotional patterns formed long before the current relationship ever existed. A person may deeply care about someone and still struggle to stay present. They may genuinely want connection and simultaneously fear it. Part of them wants to move forward, while another part is trying to pull them back into familiar territory where they feel protected. This inner conflict can be exhausting. The heart says, move closer. The fear says, be careful. The heart says, trust. The fear says, protect yourself. And when fear becomes louder than trust, distance often becomes the result. What makes this especially painful is that the person creating distance may not even fully understand why they are doing it. They know they care. They know the connection matters. Yet something inside them keeps urging them to step back whenever things become emotionally real. That is why we must remember that not every withdrawal is caused by a lack of feelings. Sometimes it is caused by feelings that are so deep they awaken wounds that have never fully healed. Because sometimes the hardest thing for a wounded heart is not learning how to love. It is learning how to believe it is safe to be loved. As we continue exploring why someone who loves you deeply may choose to stay away, we arrive at a truth that is perhaps one of the most difficult to accept. Sometimes, distance is not created because a person doesn't value you. Sometimes, it is created because they value you so much that they believe you deserve more than they can currently give. Most of us grow up believing that love means holding on. We believe that if someone truly cares, they will stay, no matter what. And while there is beauty in commitment, there are moments in life when a person looks at their own struggles, their own limitations, and their own circumstances, and genuinely feels that staying close would only bring pain to someone they love. Imagine someone who is fighting battles they haven't won yet. They may be dealing with emotional wounds, financial difficulties, uncertainty about their future, or challenges that leave them feeling lost. Every day, they wake up carrying burdens that no one else fully understands. And in the middle of all that, they meet someone they deeply care about. Instead of feeling relief, they sometimes feel pressure. Not pressure from the other person, but pressure from themselves. They begin asking questions that quietly live inside their mind. Can I give them the stability they deserve? Can I be the partner they need right now? What if my struggles become their burden? What if I bring them into a situation that only creates disappointment? These questions often come from a place of love, not selfishness. The problem is that when someone feels inadequate, they often believe distance is an act of protection. They convince themselves that stepping away is kinder than allowing someone they care about to become entangled in their difficulties. They think that by creating space, they are saving the other person from future heartbreak. Whether that belief is right or wrong is another conversation. But what matters is understanding the intention behind it. Not everyone who walks away is trying to escape responsibility. Some people walk away because they feel responsible for protecting someone they love from the parts of their life that are still broken. The tragedy is that this decision often hurts both people. The person left behind feels abandoned, confused, and rejected. Meanwhile, the person who created the distance may be carrying their own pain in silence. They miss the connection. They think about the relationship. They wonder if they made the right choice. Yet they continue believing that staying away is somehow the more loving option. Life teaches us that love is not always expressed through presence. Sometimes people show their care in imperfect ways. Sometimes they make decisions based on fear, self-doubt, or a sincere desire to spare someone from suffering. And while distance may not always be the healthiest answer, it can sometimes be the choice made by a heart that cares deeply but feels unprepared. Because there are moments when someone doesn't leave because they stopped loving you. They leave because they don't believe they can give you the life they think you deserve. As we reflect on all of these possibilities, another important truth begins to emerge. Not everyone knows how to explain what they feel. In fact, some of the deepest emotions people experience are often the ones they struggle to put into words. And this is why silence can become one of the most misunderstood parts of any relationship. When someone we care about grows quiet, our minds immediately start filling in the blanks. We assume their silence means they have stopped caring. We interpret their lack of communication as a lack of feeling. We tell ourselves that if something truly mattered to them, they would simply say it. But human beings are not always that simple. Many people are fluent in thoughts, but not in emotions. They know what they feel, but they don't know how to express it. They carry entire conversations inside their minds that never reach another person. They replay memories, question their choices, and wrestle with emotions in private while appearing distant on the outside. Sometimes, silence is not the absence of emotion. Sometimes, it is the presence of emotions that feel too complicated to explain. Think about the moments in your own life when you felt overwhelmed. There may have been times when you couldn't find the right words. Times when every explanation felt incomplete. Times when you wanted someone to understand what was happening inside you, but you didn't even fully understand it yourself. Many people live in that space far more often than we realize. When they are confused, they become quiet. When they are afraid, they become quiet. When they are overwhelmed, they become quiet. And when they care deeply but don't know what to do next, they often become even quieter. The challenge is that silence creates uncertainty, and uncertainty is uncomfortable. As human beings, we naturally want answers. We want clarity. We want reassurance. When those things are missing, our minds often create stories to explain the silence. Unfortunately, those stories are usually based on fear rather than truth. We assume the worst because the worst feels easier to understand than the unknown. But silence can have many meanings. Sometimes it signals emotional conflict. Sometimes it reflects personal struggles. Sometimes it reveals fear, insecurity, or confusion. And yes, sometimes it can indicate disinterest. The wisdom lies in understanding that silence itself is not the message. The reason behind the silence is the message. This is why emotional maturity requires us to look deeper than surface behavior. Instead of immediately asking, "Why aren't they talking?" we can learn to ask, "What might they be struggling to say?" That question changes everything. It shifts us from judgment to curiosity, from assumption to understanding, from reacting to reflecting. Of course, healthy relationships still require communication. Silence cannot replace honesty forever. Eventually, difficult conversations must happen. Feelings must be expressed. Truth must be shared. But before those conversations happen, it is important to remember that some people are carrying emotions they have never learned how to speak aloud. And sometimes, the loudest thing a person is communicating is the silence they don't know how to break. As we bring all of these ideas together, we arrive at perhaps the most important lesson of all. Understanding why someone is distant can help us find compassion, but understanding them should never require us to abandon ourselves. When someone we love pulls away, our first instinct is often to chase. We want answers. We want reassurance. We want certainty. We believe that if we just try harder, say the right words, or prove how much we care, we can close the gap between us. But there is a delicate balance between loving someone and losing yourself in the process. Many people spend months, sometimes years, waiting for another person to become ready. They place their happiness on hold. They stop focusing on their own growth. They become emotionally trapped in a cycle of hope and uncertainty, constantly wondering when the other person will return, explain themselves, or finally choose the relationship. The problem is that real love was never meant to require the sacrifice of your own peace. Compassion matters, understanding matters, patience matters, but so does self-respect. You can care deeply about someone's struggles without carrying responsibility for fixing them. You can empathize with their fears without allowing those fears to control your life. You can leave space for their healing while continuing your own journey forward. This is where emotional maturity begins. It begins when you recognize that another person's path belongs to them. Their healing belongs to them. Their decisions belong to them. No amount of love can force someone to confront fears they are not ready to face. No amount of waiting can complete a lesson that life is trying to teach them. And while they are learning those lessons, your life must continue too. Too often, people confuse waiting with loyalty. But loyalty does not mean standing still. Loyalty does not mean abandoning your dreams, neglecting your growth, or placing your future on pause. Healthy love allows both people to continue evolving even when circumstances are uncertain. Trust plays a powerful role here as well. Trust is not believing that everything will unfold exactly as you want. Trust is believing that no matter what happens, you will be okay. Trust is knowing that your worth is not determined by whether someone stays or leaves. Trust is understanding that your value remains intact, regardless of another person's ability to recognize it. When you reach that place, something beautiful happens. You stop chasing. You stop forcing. You stop trying to control outcomes that were never yours to control. Instead, you choose openness, you choose patience, you choose compassion, but most importantly, you choose yourself. If someone truly needs time to heal, you allow them that space. If they find their way back, you can meet them from a place of strength rather than desperation. And if they do not return, you have not lost yourself while waiting. Because at the end of the day, the greatest form of love is not holding on to someone at all costs. The greatest form of love is remaining kind, open-hearted, and whole, regardless of what another person chooses. The moment you stop chasing love and start honoring your own worth is the moment you become someone who no longer fears whether love stays or leaves. So, if someone who loves you deeply is staying away, don't rush to assume that their distance tells the whole story. Sometimes people step back because they are afraid. Sometimes they are carrying battles you cannot see. Sometimes they are facing wounds that love has exposed, struggles they haven't healed, or doubts they haven't overcome. And sometimes they genuinely believe that staying away is the best thing they can do for the person they care about. But while understanding their journey is important, there is something even more important: honoring your own. You cannot heal someone by sacrificing yourself. You cannot force someone to be ready. You cannot love another person so perfectly that it removes every fear they carry. Each person must walk their own path, face their own shadows, and learn their own lessons. What you can do is choose compassion over resentment. You can choose understanding over assumptions. You can choose patience without losing your self-respect. And most importantly, you can continue becoming the best version of yourself, regardless of whether someone stays, leaves, or finds their way back. Because the truth is, love was never meant to make you smaller. Real love helps you grow. It teaches you trust. It teaches you resilience. It teaches you that your worth does not depend on another person's presence. And perhaps one of the deepest lessons life can teach us is this: not everyone who walks away stops loving you. And not everyone who loves you knows how to stay. So let them walk their journey. Let them face what they need to face. Let them become who they need to become. And you, keep moving forward with grace, with strength, and with an open heart. Because the right love will never require you to lose yourself while waiting for someone else to find themselves. Sometimes the person who loves you the most is not the one standing closest to you. They may be fighting battles you cannot see, carrying fears they cannot explain, or walking a path they believe they must walk alone. But regardless of their reasons, your greatest responsibility is not to chase love. It is to become the kind of person who remains whole, peaceful, and worthy of love, whether someone stays, leaves, or eventually finds their way back.